My relationship with my dad wasn't typical. I grew up in a very small town in Oklahoma. We went to an Assembly of God church every Sunday night, every Wednesday. I always grew up saying that my dad was next in line to be the Pope. Even though we weren't Catholic, I just felt like we were in church all the time. It was like our second home. Our family was split right down the middle. I have an older brother who was always hanging out with my dad, and I was always hanging out with my mom. And so I spent most of my childhood only seeing my dad on Sunday mornings when it was time to go to church, and then the rest of the week I did my own thing. And my brother was usually always in trouble. My brother was molested when he was 13, and that sent our whole family into an uproar. And so my dad spent the rest of my brother's life taking care of him, putting out fires my brother had started. My brother became a compulsive liar. He acted out a lot, and he just had a lot of damage from the abuse that was done. And so I kind of was left on my own. And so I was raised in a house with a very close relationship with my mom, not close with my dad at all. And I lived that way most of my life until my brother moved out. And that's when my dad came back into my life. But I had spent most of my life without him, so I kind of saw it as an intrusion. Basically, my life was lived all by myself. My dad called me the autopilot kid because I could take care of myself. And when I was one of those kids that was always mad at dad. I asked my mom, a couple of times, is there any chance that you had me before you met dad? And I didn't know a lot about the birds and the bees, but I was just trying to look for a way to dismiss his authority in my life because he had never been there for me. And so when I turned 18, I was one of those kids that says, when I turn 18, I'm leaving the house and I'm never coming back. I'm not going to church again and all this stuff. And so I went to college, didn't have to go to church. But I realized that, my dad had brought us to church and he was just trying to show us the right way. He was trying to show us, his relationship with Christ and get us the word of the gospel however he could. But I went to college, fell away from God. And, one thing I would always remember is I would be out partying or doing whatever. And the one scripture I could remember was that, in the last days when the moon will turn to blood and the sun will lose its light. And I would see that in the sky and I would call my dad in the middle of the night to see if he was still on the earth, to see if the rapture had taken place. Because I knew if my dad was still here, I was still safe and I could ask God to forgive me and live another day. But I saw my dad, even though I didn't have a relationship with him, I saw him as that guiding light. I knew that if he was still on the earth and that he had given me my relationship with Christ and he'd at least shown me the example, I knew that if he was still around, I still had a chance. I grew up believing that I was gay, and my family knew it all along. My mom knew. I told my dad much later in life, but I was gay and living my life. My brother was in and out of jail, in a lot of trouble, and my mom struggled with bipolar disorder. She was manic depressive, and so my dad spent a lot of time in the living room, kneeling by the couch in prayer for all of us, sometimes till 3 a.m. And it was those early morning prayer sessions that really kept me safe while I was out doing my thing and just living my life. And so in 1998, I decided to walk out of homosexuality. Didn't know if anybody had ever done it before, but I knew God was calling me to do that. And I called my dad, and he invited me to come and stay at the house and come back to my childhood home. And the great thing about it is God provided a job for me, so I got out of debt. My father refathered me in a sense. It was like I got the father back that I never had as a child. And he taught me how to do my job at the post office because I worked right alongside him. He taught me about tithing. He really helped me foster my relationship with Christ this time. And it wasn't just religion, and it wasn't just being forced to go to church. It was actually my desire getting to go back to church and my dad helping me learn scripture and sitting by me and standing by me through everything that I went through. So I'm really grateful for everything my dad did that year, for his support of my dream, for financial support, for loving support. And it was that year that just really built our relationship over again. Built a new foundation. I was able to share with him aspects of my life that I'd never shared before, and to see his interest, and I'm really grateful for that time. I'm thankful for a dad who dragged us to church when I was a kid, even though I hated it, and dragged us to everything that the church had to offer, and instilled in our hearts that Jesus Christ was the most important thing above any degree, above any hobby, above any desire that we could have, that without Jesus Christ, life would mean nothing. And it took me a long time to get it, but it was my father that was leading the way. It was my father that stood by Christ at times when it wasn't popular, in order to give me the life that I have now. If I didn't have that relationship and that foundation with my dad, I wouldn't have had my job, my dream job at SeaWorld for 15 years. I wouldn't have a ministry to the gay community where I use my past and my experience with Christ to help men and women walk out of homosexuality. I wouldn't have that if I didn't have a father who prayed, if I didn't have a father who believed the word and prayed the word over me and taught me the word. So Dad, you're awesome. I'm thankful, I'm grateful that you did things that were unpopular in order to make sure that I would live a life that's an amazing life. Thank you.